Hi, Islena. It's so nice to have you back again. Today, we're going to be talking about relationships and healing and connection. And I think this is a really relevant topic because so many women are suffering with their partners, not understanding what they're going through right now in
Yeah,
perimenopause, menopause. And so I'm really glad that you chose this topic. And I think you wanted to have a particular focus on attachment wounds.
yeah,
So before we get started, do you want to just introduce yourself briefly?
sure. Good to be here in this space, in this community. And my name's Islena Faircrest. I'm an internal family systems practitioner. So I work with individuals and people that are either in some kind of transition in their life, experiencing a change or a transition, or wanting to deepen their connection and intimacy in relationships. And when we talk about relationships, it's not just the intimate ones with our significant other or partner or spouse. It's also how we relate with others in general, platonic friends, family members. We are in relationship with the world. So, how we relate to our environment and all that's in it, all the kindreds that are in it. Yeah, so that's kind of what I do in a nutshell. And I help people to see their patterns underneath the surface that might interfere with authentic connection. But really, the interference is just protection from a remembrance in our system of connections that weren't great in the past or were potentially threatening or harmful. Yeah.
Mhm. And
And
so,
I just want to say I'm holding my mic because my headset just snapped before
oh,
before we started this call. I was
no
adjusting it.
problem.
This is like we're in real life time here with working through the tech.
You just look like very serious, you know. It's great.
There
So
yeah.
I guess what you're talking about now, when you're talking about people's past
Hmm.
history of relationships, is attachment wounds.
Hmm. Yep.
Some of our listeners will be familiar with that concept and some won't. Is there just a broad definition that you'd like to give for those that aren't familiar?
Sure. Yeah. Um, so when we're in relationship with another, I call it the other, um, it's we may notice that we have moments and experiences where we experience a trigger inside, an activation inside, where something they do or say has us feeling great discomfort and tension inside. And we may become defensive or shut down or reactionary. And those defenses kind of expose something inside of our psyche that is kind of exposing a prior hurt or a prior misunderstanding or a prior wound with a foundational person to us, whether it was a caregiver, a parent, a significant other, someone in our past. And attachment wounds on the kind of primal level are basically the relational injuries that we sustained with a parent or a caregiver, primary, growing up where our needs were unmet. And it's a spectrum, it's a wide range. It could have been uh, a more, let's call it minor attachment connection that was disrupted with a parent or a caregiver being distracted or working full time or a single parent or, the attunement just wasn't there. The parent was preoccupied and or navigating their own relational injuries and wounds. And so, or it could have been more extreme, where the needs were quite unmet for a long time. So it really runs in a range.
Mm.
And the human animal is the one that depends on our caregivers the longest, compared to other animals. So we have a very long time period of development comparatively to other mammals. We really depend. We're a naked species. We come into this world naked, not a lot of hair, zero survival ability unless the caregiver is there, like nurturing us for often much longer than 18 years. So we're just very vulnerable. And so that's why we're, although we have a lot of intelligence, we have a large, prefrontal cortex, we're very developed, very socially adept and complex creatures. And at the same time, we're very dependent and codependent on our caregivers and our community.
Mm.
So that's why our conditioning and our wiring of how we learned to relate to the world has such an impact on us continuing into our adulthood and later years, especially during perimenopause and menopause, when our hormonal shifts and changes bring up a lot of our unprocessed patterns from the past. Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone isn't really sure if they have an attachment wound or if it's impacting them
Mhm.
nowadays, it sounds like they need to just notice when they feel that discomfort with another
Yeah.
person.
Yes.
Tune into that. That's what you're saying, and then become
That's
aware. Like, what is it in this person that's bothering me? Or
that's right. That's a great way to put it. It's
mm,
an opportunity for reflection to
mm,
get to know parts of your psyche that are more hidden.
mm,
Those parts are hidden from our kind of more conscious awareness in the everyday, and they're hidden for good reason. They're protective in nature, and they're kind of just always working in the background of your awareness, like detectors, tick, 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 scanning the environment. Is this safe? Is that safe? Da, da, da. Oh, based on the history that you lived, Nicola, avoid this, avoid that, or make sure you do this, or make sure you do that, right? Same goes for me, same goes for everybody. And we're not really aware of it unless we pay more attention to it. Our attention, our awareness is a gift that we can use and shine like a flashlight when these triggers and activations happen in your life. You can use the gift of your awareness, what we call witnessing energy, or the observer is what it's called in Buddhist or mindfulness practices. And that observer energy in you can really help you to see, oh, there's something familiar here. This discomfort feels familiar. Let's get curious about it. Not to judge it, not to make it wrong or bad, because if we remember that it's protective in nature, it's trying to protect you. So there's a love in that. This awareness of yours has a love in it to protect your system. So there's care there. And if we can see it through that lens, it kind of takes the sting, a little bit of the sting. There's still pain. Life has pain, but the sting might be a little less. Sorry
mm.
about the sirens. I wanted to be outside because that's my happy place, but we're in the
It's a
city.
beautiful tree in the background, so don't worry
Thank you.
about it. Yeah. Um, so
Yeah,
can people, are attachment wounds only from our childhood, or can we also form them later in life from relationships with our partners as an adult?
great question. Yeah. So the primary uh, attachment injuries, let's call them, or wounds, are often caregiver related in terms of that imprinting that we got those 0 to 5 years, very foundational, really imprints. And I would say that our later relationships would compound our prior experiences. Uh, and there are experiences you can have in early adulthood that would be very different from your home of origin and your childhood. So those may be so unique and different from your original experiences that they are new, but there will still be a layer of it that has familiarity.
Mm,
But you could experience a trauma, an acute trauma, an accident or something in adulthood that brings a whole host of new dynamics and then relational consequences because of those dynamics. So to answer your question, there can be experiences in adulthood. In my prior marriage, I experienced some things that I had not experienced in growing up that were unique and new. And so I, in that experience, created some adaptation strategies, unconscious, of course, just buried deep in the subconscious of me, that were really only revealed later, that I could process through much later after divorcing. And they were unique and new to my childhood, yet there was a familiarity there of the power dynamics. So I know it's more nuanced, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, that
Hmm.
makes sense. So maybe we should cut to the chase if we're talking about perimenopause or women who are experiencing issues in their relationships. So what I'm aware of is pressure from partners to have sex when women have a lower sex drive often,
Great
and lack
question.
of
Yes. Hmm.
understanding from their partners um, regarding just what's going on for them, and
Yes.
a lack of willingness to learn and understand.
Yes.
Is
Yes. Thank you so much for this question. And it's so important. And I will preface that I'm not a menopause expert by any means. I just happen to be going through it myself. And I know a lot of information, but
uh-huh.
I'm not an expert. But I'll speak from my own experience and also just what I've learned in community, thanks to spaces like this, communities like this, and a podcast that I do with two colleagues where we actually have focused on menopause, and we've had a few specialists on our pods on episodes. And so as we know, going through peri and menopause, it- like the more extreme side might be vaginal atrophy and symptoms we're experiencing around that, and dryness and lack of lubrication, and not feeling like it's the last thing that we feel like doing, and deep uh, and big emotional swings, and all of that. Um, and as we're navigating that, if we don't have the vocabulary or the language to express our experience, we're not only in the wilderness trying to figure things out and understand, our partners are even in a deeper, darker, let's say, like lack of light wilderness, where they are quite confused and naive and ignorant. And that can, not necessarily always, but can trigger old ways of relating that are familiar in our system. Again, going back to these kind of injuries we sustained back in our childhood home of origin around communication and expression. So that can show up in things like shutting down. Ourselves or our partner shuts down, or ourselves and or our partner gets defensive, or ourselves and or our partner gets controlling, demanding. So these go back to these lived experiences in our system of how we adapted and survived back in the day to get our needs met. Controlling behavior on a partner's behalf of imposing sex on a woman goes back to trying to control the environment to get their needs met. I'm not condoning the behavior. I'm not saying it's okay. It just goes, there's a root that is to be addressed there for that partner to do their work, in understanding uh, why these behaviors are coming through in this manner, right? So we all have different ways of reacting and responding to our needs being unmet, right? At its core, right? And if a partner and or ourselves doesn't know how to express our needs, doesn't have the words, vocabulary, or emotional literacy, because we haven't been taught, it's not our fault, to express, hey, I'm in a lot of physical pain when we have sex, when we have intercourse. I want to learn. I want to, talk to my doctor. I want to, like, will you join me on board in this? This is so confusing. It's so frustrating. If there's a connection there with your partner and there's care, they'll share the, oh, man, yeah, this sucks experience, and with just that little bit of empathy together, you can learn more about options. Because when I went through this, I was like, wow, this sucks. This is painful. And it just learning about uh, adapting and finding new ways to get our needs met, right? There's opportunity for creative collaboration together with your partner, and that can bring new kinds of intimacy because you're giggling through it, you're tripping over, learning, like, oh, isn't this funny? Like my partner and I laugh very often through these symptoms that I experience because it's like laughing through the pain. We might as well bring some levity to this humanity. And if we can do that, it's not laughing at ourselves, it's laughing with the kind of dilemma of life, right? As we transition and change, that can open the heart to a little more felt sense of empathy, of connection. And in that connection, there's a little more vulnerability. And in that vulnerability, there's intimacy. And then you're like, I don't know, 18 or 20 again, figuring out how to do something you don't know how to do. And then there could be fun in that, right? Because you're just, again, laughing through it. So really this speaks to like, how can we adapt to learn new ways of sharing our vulnerability, our discomfort, so that our partner knows A, what's going on, big changes, B, there's a bit of a ride ahead, and are you on board? Are we on this? Are we a team together? You know, this is it's it. I don't want to compare it to like an illness because menopause is not an illness, but there's just big changes, you know. But we can experience illness in menopause as our systems might become compromised, as our energy shifts, right? And so whenever there's a big change like that, there's re-looking, there's pause and opportunities for new kinds of connection.
What
Yeah.
would you suggest to women who find it difficult to be vulnerable?
Yeah. Great question. It's a big one. there's a,
Do we
there's
have time?
a lot there. We could, you got 5 hours? If we experience, so here's the thing, vulnerability is hard because we're sharing something that is hard. So, and I want to be a little clear around what vulnerability is not. Maybe let's begin with that. Sometimes we think like vulnerability is like, oh, I can share, you know, something uncomfortable easily. There's a term for that, and I can't remember it right now because I'm having a brain fart. Thank you, menopause. But it's where you just kind of like, you know, spit it out and kind of throw it out there. And it might be startling for others to hear. It's a little bit of it might be a little shocking, but it's a way for us to kind of dump something and test the waters and see if, you know, and again, I'm not shaming it. It's just something we do to see if the crowd or the audience can receive us, right? And it might be it's a way of reaching out, seeking connection as well. But an authentic sharing from vulnerability is most often deeply uncomfortable because we risk getting rejected, misunderstood, misinterpreted, abandoned, all those things, right? It's so, first of all, just normalize that it's really uncomfortable. So in a way, we should not want to be vulnerable most times. So, however, if there's a felt sense of sufficient safety, it's like, oh, I'm going to take a risk. Now, that safety can hopefully happen in two places. One, inside ourselves, and two, in the environment. The practice of feeling that safety inside ourselves is a practice. This is what modalities like internal family systems are really good at, providing the space and the platform for us to really get intimate and get to know all that exists inside of us. Like it's a really beautiful self-discovery, self-knowing practice. as you get to become more familiar with these tender places inside of you that are really vulnerable and terrified to share their truth because it was dangerous or threatening to share their truth back in the day as you were growing up, and you can practice holding the space, and this is done with practitioners and with therapists. I highly recommend that. Get a professional to
Me
guide you and help
too.
you.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Individuals like yourself and myself and everyone in this community,
Mm.
you start to get a little more familiar with this kind of terrain that is quite terrifying, right? Because of its vulnerability. And as you get more familiar with it, you start to see more of it in the world too. And we begin to realize, wow, everybody's walking with these layers. I'm not alone. And so it normalizes feeling alone. And so it's like, oh, I'm not alone in feeling alone. I'm not alone in feeling like there's something wrong with me or wrong with my behavior. I'm not alone in feeling like I don't know enough or I'm not good enough. And that commonality is very relieving to these tender parts in us, because then they can be in a relationship with someone and realize, oh, yeah, they've got those bits too. We've all got these shadow bits and that feel, not good enough, uncomfortable, not smart enough, just like da 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 da. And we're all here with that. And it's kind of okay. And when it shows up, I can recognize it in you. When it shows up in me, you can recognize it in me. And we just keep moving forward in time, companioning together. And so, it's kind of a long-winded question, answer to your question. I would first suggest that let it be okay that it's highly uncomfortable to be vulnerable. First, normalize that. And then there's a lot of resources out there, internal family systems and others, that give you a platform and a structure to slowly and repeatedly get to know these, what we call shadow parts or unintegrated wounded inner child parts within us, getting to know them better and practicing communicating with them. It's an actual thing. Communicating with our inner child parts, it's an actual thing. And when I first started doing it, it was so weird, awkward, and uncomfortable. It's like that first date or first kiss where you're just like so awkward and don't know what you're doing, and you're like, is this even real? I'm doing it wrong. I don't forget it. So awkward. And slowly over time, you get better at it and you get to realize, oh, there's an actual system inside of me that has different ways of relating with all the different parts of me. And you're communicating with it is a way of being with these energies that exist inside of you that used to be really attached to the way you used to survive. They kind of keep repeating that inside of you. But as they communicate more with your present moment awareness, and this is just done in meditation or felt sense experiences, just rinse, repeat, those energies in you start to realize there's finally a caring adult or parent in the room, which is your awareness, that just the act of your presence being with this energy inside of you is enough for that energy to integrate back into your system and look through your eyes at the world today and be kind of updated to showing up in the world and still using their skills and all the things that you've learned in life. Like if you experienced a lot of neglect growing up and you overcompensated by becoming a type A high achieving performer, there's nothing wrong with that if the energy's, you know, uh, sustainable in your system. If you don't burn yourself out, I mean, you've likely become highly skilled at your things, and the world needs you in those skills. So learning to channel that energy forward in a sustainable way versus like your younger parts inside of you coming from the place of not enoughness. When there's enough communication with your present moment awareness that is ventral, online, semi-regulated, like sufficiently regulated, that's enough for these energies inside of us, these wounded younger parts that have the attachment injuries, to get slowly updated. And when I say slowly, it's not as slow as our growing up years. It doesn't take years and years. Well, it doesn't take decades. It doesn't
Yeah,
take decades.
yeah,
It'll just take a couple of years.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I was someone who found it difficult to be vulnerable before therapy, and I feel like what I learned once I started being vulnerable was that I got more hurt from not being vulnerable than from being vulnerable, you know. Because when you are
Wow.
vulnerable, the way the other person responds to you is so they're so much warmer in response to your authentic vulnerability. And you get a response much more like what you were hoping for.
Very true.
Mm,
Yep.
yeah.
We get seen. And
Mm,
these young parts of us that are so tender and raw and thirsty,
yeah.
they get that drink of water they've been wanting. Connection.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. So let's try to summarize. So
Okay.
women are experiencing issues in their relationships right now with their partners. It may
Hmm.
be because they have some attachment wounds that are coming up for them even more right now because of all the pressures they're under due to their symptoms, the emotional
Hmm.
roller coaster that they're on,
Exhaustion,
exhaustion, yeah, not sleeping
fatigue,
well.
insomnia, all of it. Physical pain, inflammation. Yep.
Right.
All of
So
it.
yeah, it's not a great situation. It's and it can be, you know, challenging to even have the space and the time to say, I'm going to address this. I want to look at this, like we're
Yes.
suggesting, you know.
Yes.
But if women can carve out some space for themselves to take a moment and think about how they're communicating with their partner and think about whether or not they can recognize when they're uncomfortable with their partner, if that may be something from their childhood, seeing if they can connect to that childlike part of themselves.
Hmm.
If not, going to a therapist or coach. And yeah, and then and maybe trying to communicate with more authentic vulnerability about what they're going through to try and get their partner on board with them as a team.
Yeah.
Have I missed
Yes.
some?
As a team.
Mm,
Yeah. That's beautifully said. And I would suggest not trying to take on all this work on your own. It's really hard, if not almost impossible, to go through something as transformative as menopause and perimenopause on your own. So this is not about like, how do I help my partner to, or let's put it this way, it's not just about how do I help my partner understand that intercourse is painful and get him to understand. It's so much more than that. This you're entering a phase of life where you have an opportunity to learn how to express and communicate radically differently,
mm,
because your body's going through radical transformation as well. There's a certain stage of life that we used to be available for is no longer available. You know, those reproductive years are over. And that's massive on a, regardless of whether we have children or want children, regardless of that, you know, the body's going through massive transformation. And so there's opportunity for that in your relationships as well. And so I want women, I would love for women to see that this is an opportunity to have a new chapter.
mm,
You know, the things that have been um, difficult, perhaps, or challenging in your relationship up to now, there's an opportunity for some deep work there. And it's not an overnight, you know, one and done thing. There's a process ahead. It's kind of like a pilgrimage. I don't know. I was just talking about with a friend yesterday who just had an incredible month-long trip in She just took time off of work and did something for herself, same age as us, going through big transitions and change. Did like bucket list month-long trip. She's like, I'm going to travel while I can, and work will have to wait. And had to make a big change around work. And it just reminded me that we have these opportunities for some kind of a deep journey. And for some of us, that may be recreating or rewiring our relationship with others, including the intimate one with our spouse or partner.
Mm.
And get help, get support. There's so many communities. This is an amazing one that provide resources and feedback and various levels of expertise. Don't try and do it on your own, because we take turns helping each other.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's lovely. Oh, well, thank you, Islena. I think we must talk again because there's so much more to cover. How can people find you if they want to find you online?
They can find me through you and this
Through
community.
her, the Herspace website has your
Yep,
details.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And onboardwellness.com is my website, and all my socials are on there too. And yeah, I encourage you to connect on my socials, because I share a lot of stuff on there too, just like you and we all do. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, it's been great, and I'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Nicola. Take care.
Bye.
Bye for now.